Welcome back to the Keeney Garage. I am Keeney. This is my garage. And today, the garage brings to us the 1996 AM General Hummer H1 with the 6.5 liter turbo diesel. It has a low power and slight misfire and more black smoke while driving than usual. The story goes, that story's kind of long on my work here, so I'm gonna read through it real quick. Starting with the history. The rear air conditioner would not enable. The dash was removed. The rear air switch on the front dashboard was replaced. So apparently control the rear air from the front. And possible wiring changes also were done for that switch. The rear air did work after. The rear exterior lights stopped working a long time ago. The rear seats were removed to access the rear exterior lighting circuits. Wires are repaired. Exterior lights function properly after. Vehicle was then ready to drive home after that said work had been done. And it was noted that the glow plug light would not illuminate at this time. That other stuff was done. And there was also a long crank, but eventually fired. The engine eventually fired. And the alternator gauge was noticed to be low and stayed low while driving. So it was still driven that night after the work was done. We had no glow plug light and long crank and whatnot. So while they was driving, the poor drivability that we're now sort of queued up on and black smoke was noticed. And so during that drive, with the low voltage noticed. And upon arriving home, the engine was a no crank at that time. Both batteries were replaced, alternator was replaced, but voltage was still at about 12-ish volts. The alternator was removed and taken to a store and tested, and it tested okay. Then the glow plug relay was replaced, the turbo boost controller was replaced, and then a couple other notes of some other odds and ends I think that he wants to be done if we get to it. So, seems to be we've got poor drivability, no glow plugs, and no battery charging. It seems to be our main concerns. I think of those, the primary concerns is the drivability. And for me, now I did a little bit digging on this because nobody offers service information. Oh, let's go for a field trip, shall we? Let's go check this old girl out. I did do the visual inspection on her, where I pick her up in the air and look her over and whatnots, but she's got the old 6.5 turbo diesel. There's a lot of little extra wiring, so down in here there's some kind of wires hanging loose. You can see a couple of the new parts that were replaced over there. He said he replaced, I think, the glow plug solenoid and the wastegate solenoid, I think is what he said. And so we can see some of those new parts back in yonder. So I believe that's the vacuum diaphragm for the wastegate, and then the glow plug thing was, oh yeah, somewhere back in there. It's just kind of dark. But anyway, this is our Hummer H1. The interior has been touched up, but the dash, so the reason they pulled the dash out of it was it was getting a custom dash put in. We can see, so she's got the custom seats and all of the normal control stuff, dash, like this side of the dash is there, but I believe that side of the dash is all getting custom upholstery and custom fitted. I think it might be a totally custom build. But we can see all of the wiring and such for all of the different stuffs is there. There's some radio stuff, there's some HVAC stuff, there's some what looks like maybe aftermarket controllers and whatnot. And then in the rears, we can see we got the upholstered seats. This is what I was going to bring you to. This is our service manual. This contains everything about this truck because you can't really get it nowhere else. That thing is a good, I don't know, 5 inches thick or something like that. But I actually found an online PDF version so we can control F search through it, which is awesome. So we're going to use that and then keep this as a backup. That's the rear HVAC that they was talking about. I think cold, hot, whatever, and it blows. It's got a blower in it, like it's a whole little enclosed unit and what have you. But keeping our service manual in mind, back here, with our service manual in mind, we got the PDF version pulled up. There are 2 codes in memory. I'm gonna get you to the old computer. The only way that I could actually get DTCs to pull with the Autel was to use 1979 protocol. 1979, 1850 protocol, the generic OBD, EOBD protocol, and obviously it's only going to pull one computer there. But these are the 2 codes that it pulls: a P0380 and a 1656. When you use the Autel, it says, and you try to pull codes on it, it's like, we detected some weird manufacturer-specific doohickey dilly. You need to pick the manufacturer. And if you pick GM, it says driver 2, line 6. And if you pick like other, I think it brings up nondescript, like there's no real definers, like C automotive manufacturer details or whatever. It just basically tells you it's a manufacturer-specific code. So if we go to the PDF version, that 1650 does pull up wastegate solenoid control circuit. We'll keep that in mind. This certainly could cause us an issue for our poor drivability if I guess depending on which way it failed, assuming it failed or something and it failed, if we're not getting the right turbo boost, perhaps that'll give us black smoke and poor drivability. Though it doesn't really give us anything about alternator voltage. The other one it gives us is an 0380. And let's see if I can page up here. I don't know if it'll give me an 0380. Yeah, glow plug circuit performance. And so we have those 2 codes. Those are the 2 codes we have to go off of. And then doing some very preliminary digging around as far as like part availability and trying to find like what's available for this thing and what's not, being like the GM powertrain, but AM General, everything else. What I think I found, it does start and run. It does have a little bit of long crank, and it does have some puffs of black smoke or gray smoke when you first start it, and it's specific puffs, not just like a haze. It'll do that too, but also has specific like cylinder puffs. And you can also hear what very much sounds like fuel knock coming from the engine. So I do think one of the injectors is getting a little goofy on her. I'm going to have the guy, before we actually drive into injector stuff, I'm going to have him do an old school trick that I come across a long time ago. I'm just going to have him run like a quart of kerosene through the tank. And if it gets quiet, like if that knock goes away, the fuel knock goes away, it means it's fuel knock. And very likely he's got some injectors that are failing or whatever. That said, trying to tie all these symptoms together, the injectors on this old girl are mechanical. They do not have any wires going to them, though the injection pump has a couple wire harnesses going to. It's got like a 4 or 5 pin and like a 2 pin, I think. I don't remember. So if we have the question I pose is trying to figure out what direction do we go. Personally, I think I'm going to chase alternator voltage first. And my hypothesis is if we don't have the proper voltage to the injection pump, then we're going to be unable to correctly meter fuel delivery to the injectors. And I do also think that could give us poor drivability, excessive black smoke, etc. Now, I think that's separate from the fuel knock we talked about, 'cause it's like specifically one cylinder you can kind of hear knocking, but it does sound like fuel knock, not quite like rot knock. That said, in my preliminary inspection, so I do just a preliminary inspection on all vehicles that show up. I looked at the alternator. It's got the big post on the back, and it has a skinny wire going up underneath of it. And that seems to be the only wires going to the alternator. And just seeing that skinny wire, it mounts to the bottom of the alternator. So I just ran my hand along the bottom of that alternator, and the connector came unplugged very easily. So the connector is just hanging there. I don't know if it was just not plugged in, but keep in mind, according to our order of events, the low voltage was noticed after the dash was removed, not after the alternator was replaced and or after this new alternator was tested. So the question begs, is it coincidence that, yeah, I don't think our charging issue has something to do with our loose connector that I found in my pre-inspection. I think we got something else probably going on, but I personally want to go after the voltage issue first. I think that's where we're going to start. And to do that, in this PDF diagram, there are some, or this PDF manual, there are some wiring diagrams as well. I'm going to get those printed, and we'll see if we can trace down that, I don't even remember what wire they call it, skinny wire I was talking about on the alternator, the energizer wire or whatever it's called. I'm curious to see if it goes to the interior at all, because if we just remove the dash and that's when all our problems started, I'm thinking something inside all that wiring laying on the large center console might be a tie to what's been going on with her. That is what I know. That is where we are going today. We will we'll print that diagram. I guess grab voltmeter and maybe the scope. I don't know. That's what we got. Let's get after it. Perusing around, we're not going to print this, I don't think. In the alternator removal process, step 5, it says unlock and disconnect the field wire. Figure 1237, that's this one. So the field wire is what we're calling our little connector that's actually on the bottom of this alternator, so it mounts underneath. And then if I scroll up, actually, we can see there should be 2 large cables, and I don't remember how many there are. There should be 2 large cables coming off the alternator. One goes to a fusible link to everything. One goes to a fusible link to battery. And so that's interesting. I'll be curious to see if one of those has been blown. We'll definitely need to check that for sure. And then this thing is pretty cool testing. If I scroll down past all, it tells you how, like, pull it apart, test it, rebuild it, whatever. But it's got, here it is, a no charge or an in-op trouble tree, and it's got all these steps to go through. And that's pretty cool. If we have to go back to that, we will, but I think we're just going to do some high-level checks first. An example, this one. I think we need to see, it's interesting, the low coolant sensor. That's all right. We'll keep that in mind. I don't know if that'll be tying anything. I don't know if that shorted out, if it'd take this down. That would. Ooh. Well, we don't know. But if that shorted, I guess that would blow that fuse. That may not excite the alternator. But this also goes hot and run and start. That means this goes interior somewhere. Fuse 3B exterior. So exterior fuse block, I assume. Pink wire to, it doesn't tell us. Anyway, this is what I think we're going to do first. Let us go over and see if we cannot trace, or see how far we can trace these thick wires to a possible fusible link and or the battery, and then see where we can trace this one to and see if we can find that fuse. Hanging out over the alternator, I pulled off the little intake tube so we can get a better view here. This connector right down here, that was in my hand that you cannot see anymore. There it is. that one in my hand. That's the one that goes underneath, so that should be our voltage, whatever I called it, wire. And then we've got more than two going to the back of the alternator. Looks like we got three, I think, but I did notice they're a little loose. So these are moving a little bit. I'm going to try and trace these couple and see, oh yeah, that nut's loose. I'm going to try and trace these and see if I can figure out which ones go where and if there's any of those fusible links in between. All right, to the best of my ability, this one here that I'm looping my finger on runs into this harness, and this harness runs up to here. I can see a fat red wire right there, and that goes somewhere inside. Inside, there's part of the HVAC duct that mounts there. I can't quite see where she goes to, but I think that's one. And then number two is, you can't see, number two is this orange wire that's mounted under there. So the orange wire goes to something that's very difficult to see, and I can't quite get my hand on, so just bear with me a moment here. So the orange wire goes to right here, which the tip of my finger is touching. That is something big and fat and wrapped in heat shrink. And as such, I think that might be a fusible link. And then, after it goes through that fusible link, it loops. Oh, I lied to you. I don't know where that one goes. I mislooked at that one. All right, so let's go to the third one. I'll have to retrace that one. The third one is this big fat red wire that you can't see, that I'm now pinching. It's right there. I'm touching my thumb. This big fat red wire, it goes down, and when it goes down, it loops around, and when it loops around, so just to get perspective, alternator's there, batteries are here, and when that big fat red one loops around, it goes right here to this splice right there, that's zip tied, and it changes from red to orange. So you can see red by my thumb. I know it's blurry. Let's see if I can get closer. Red by my thumb, where it's tapping, and then orange out. And then when we go orange out, that goes right into here. And so that one goes to battery. So the only one that I gotta retrace is the one that starts orange. I thought that went down to the starter, but after relooking up here again, I think it goes somewhere else. Let me retrace that one. We have obviously moved to underneath. The orange comes right through here. So where my, you can see, where my, come on, there, where my index finger's tapping, it's on a wire, and that comes down to this junction. This is wrapped in tape, and there's a huge fat wire on this side, and then there's a branch off this, goes to the starter. You can see that wire wiggling. It goes to that blue wire. So that's from here. This part of it goes up to the orange wire, and then this big fat part of it goes somewhere way up in there, and I have no idea yet where she goes. It looks like it might wrap up over the engine or something, but that's what I know. In finishing our tracing from that last wire, looks like it comes to this harness, as you still can't see. This one that I'm pulling up on, that harness runs through there, so it's this one, and that one runs under there to this one, and then that one runs up there to that connector, or that bulkhead harness, and looks like it goes on the interior. And that was from the orange wire. That does match our diagram, which is great news, which I did print. So we had orange to fusible link, which is probably what that thing right down there is. And then it goes to black, which it does go to black in that harness. It's a black wire. and so we're going to assume that's where she goes. We'll keep that in mind. But the next one was red to orange, and we did see that because it's right there. So right here is red. Oh, you can see it one shot. Right there's red. Right there's orange. And so where it changes from red to orange, there's a fusible link. Let's test this fusible link since we're right here. We can pull it off the battery. We'll pull it off the alternator, and we're not going to use a scope. We're going to use an ohm meter for the first time in lock forever. But we're going to ohm this wire out and see if that fusible link is any good. Actually, at a slight change, we're not going to do a resistance reading. There's a whole bunch of wires in here, and I'm going to try not to disturb them too much. I don't want to short stuff. What I have done is taken the cables off of the back side of the alternator, and then what we should be able to do, because this goes to battery positive cable and is attached there, so where we pull it off here, we should be able to get 12 volts. And if we have 12 volts at this one red wire, then that means this has got to be good because it's coming from battery. I really don't have a good way to film all this, so you're just going to have to deal with what you can. Well, I'll just rip that out. That's cool. I'm also going to do a slight load test. We got this test light's looking for positive, so when this finds positive, it will light. I had the voltmeter set up to measure ground, and so over there. So let me just touch battery, make sure we got 12 volts. Can you see it? We got 12.7 on the meter, and then so this should both light, and that should read 12, assuming we have the correct voltage on our terminal here. And so my test light, the test light lights. Can you see it? Can you actually see it? Probably not. There you go. Test light is lighting. And then obviously if I touch with so we know that fusible link is good. And then I'm going to be very careful so I don't short all that stuff on anything else that's grounded. Alright, I have tried to get you set up in a good spot to see this. There ain't no good spots being up underneath this hood and everything else. Next thing I'm going to go for is the ignition feed wire. So from our little connector, which you just ain't going to be able to see. There ain't even enough room for my hands to get down in here. I believe the key is off, and so we should have 0 volts. So let me take my positive lead and touch battery because the other lead's all negative. As you can see, we got 12 volts when I touch battery. So we're going to take this same lead, and we should have 0 volts down here when I touch this wire inside this connector because the key's off. It should be off. We have 0 volts. Okay. Let me go and turn the key on and see when I cut the key on, we should have, in a perfect world, the key is now on. In a perfect world, we should have voltage there. I'm sort of suspecting that we don't. I'm thinking that might be our issue. Oh, shoot, plastic stuff. Okay, we do not have voltage there when we actually have almost exactly 0 volts. So, and I am making contact for sure. I'm going to go back to touch the B plus post. Touching B plus, and of course, nothing. So that means I lost my negative. Come on. This is so much fun. Okay, there's 12. Now we lost it again. Please hold. Okay, I've now switched to a clamp on B minus. So now when we touch B plus, we get 12 volts. The key is still on. Now let's go back down here. The key's still on, and lose our connector. This is really a pain. Okay, now, boom, now we're making contact. Okay, I'm in the pin, and we have no voltage. Let's go find our fuse, or whatever. Oh man, I got this thing wrapped all the way up in there. We have no voltage here. Let's go, actually, let's look for our low coolant sensor and just make sure that, since we're already right here, let's make sure that thing, probably I'm going to say is unplugged. It shouldn't be shorted, but you can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to see if I can find that real quick since I'm already here. Well, at this point, I'm hoping that you are having half as much fun as I'm having. Uh, Either this thing's been gone through a lot, which it has, and or the service info from the book doesn't quite match what we got, which is very possible. So we're just left with like old school tracing stuff. So let me been all over the stupid thing, and I'll show you where I'm at. This wire's pink. It says it goes to C3-4. If I trip over myself and go over to the computer, C3-4. Oh, hold on. Did we already screw this up? It's 4-3, isn't it? C4-3. 4-3. Back over here. 4-3. We can see ignition feed alternator. And it looks like this. It is what looks like a 4-row connector. Yeah, and some big fat wires on the outside. So 2 big fat wires on the outside, 2 big fat wires, and then 8 skinny wires on the inside. This does not exist on this car at all. But if we follow this around from our ignition feed at the alternator, this doesn't exist. I also couldn't find this. I don't even know if it exists. It didn't look that hard, but I could not find it. But what I will tell you is this harness that we followed earlier, right here, and so the alternator with one of the positive wires, but that skinny ignition feed wire goes down, loops back up, and when it loops back up, it comes to here, this one there underneath. That goes to this big fat one, and what I will tell you is that then goes to here, and there is in fact a pink wire in there, and it looks like, oh, there's 2 pink wires, I think. So I only see like 2 pink wires in here. And so our next step, I'm going to unbolt this connector. I'm going to do a continuity check to see if one of these pink wires is the same wire that goes to the alternator, and then go from there. Because, I don't remember if I said it already, this also does not seem to exist. I even went online, and there's some people showing it like in this area. And the service info in the book says under the hood on the driver's side of the engine bay, under a cowl or something, and man, there's a bunch of wires and stuff in here. There are no fuse box and relay box under here. I think it's one of them wires. It goes to the inside. Let's unbolt that and figure out which one of those wires goes over there. You probably ain't gonna be able to see nothing, but there ain't no good spots in this engine bay. I got the black lead over there, hopefully snuck in that alternator wire well enough, and I got the beepies on the meter going. So we're on the second row down, 1, 2, 3, fourth one in. So second one, row 1, 2, 3, nothing. Okay, let's try the other pink wire. There's another one in here somewhere. Looks like, is it the corner one? Oh, there's a couple pink wires. So corner one and the third one is a corner one. Oh, yes. Oh, come on. We got the greatest glares. 1, 2 ohms, I'm gonna let it out. And then back in. That's it. This corner one right there. Okay, now let's go inside and figure out where that corner one goes. Okay, to the best of my ability, that's the connector we just went to, and we can see it is a little bit on that side of the steering wheel. When we run around in here, and our light is way up in there, in the background there, you can see a corner. See where them wires come through? A little black corner there. I think that is where the connector comes through. It goes into a wire loom, which I think is this wire loom. And I think is this wire loom And that goes to everything else in here. Let me see if I can find a pink wire in here, and then we'll do another continuity check. All right, to the best of my ability, this computer has 3 pink wires going to it. There are 2 that you cannot see. Oh, where are you? There's 2 pink wires there. You can see them in the background. They're blurry. 2 pink wires there, and what looks like 1 pink wire there. I'm going to disconnect this connector and that connector and do a continuity check. There's actually pink wires in all 3 of those connectors, and none of them made the beepies go off. I got the meter hanging out there, and I got all the extensions running into here. Perhaps it does not come this way. It's hard to see up under there. Let's go back there and see if it goes over towards the key or something. All right, buried under here, there's another connector. At least there was. I don't even know how to show you guys this stuff. There it is. There. There's this connector. It's got some pink wires, and it looks like it feeds up under yonder where we saw. Let's see if I can do tests with this connector now. Okay, we found it. Not this white connector. Not the other one that we were on. This one here. There's a little black connector back there. See that pink wire to the left of my finger? There's actually 2 of them. The leftmost of the 2 pink wires is it. Now I just gotta figure out, it beeps. Where does it go from there? And then I have no clue. Alright, so from behind there, it goes up over the steering column, drops down into this. Somewhere in here is where that pink wire comes out. I'm going to try to cut some zip ties and deconstruct this, but our pink wire is going somewhere in here. Okay, as long as we're not mixing weird stuff up. I think it goes to this 3-way splitter, it looks like. If I go in here, you probably can hopefully hear. Well, that's weird. It says OL, but it's beeping. Alright, well, I don't know how that's possible. Oh, there it goes. I don't know why my meter says OL. It's beeping now. What does it say now? I don't know what's going on with my meter. Is this thing working? Let me pull this out. Touch this. Yeah, it's reading. I'm just shorting it to itself. Because this end is plugged into the alternator. And then the black lead is just a 3-foot lead that's right here in my hand. And so I don't know why or how in the world we're getting a reading here on this thing. We're getting a beep, but it says OL. I don't know what's happening. I have no clue what's going on. You can't see anything, but it's beeping. What? I don't even have my headphones in, so hopefully the audio doesn't suck too bad. We traced through all that stuff down towards the fuse box, and remember the fuse box, or the wiring diagram said fuse box was under hood. This thing got one, and there's a whole bunch of pink wires that run through, and somehow we get continuity with the beeper, like it'll beep, but it says OL. And I went through the test lot before I even started going through all this, just to make sure. I checked all them fuses with the key on, and all the fuses are good, and the fuses are good. This is I don't even know what to say to this. So we got the meter over there, holding all this by hand. Right here, there's a fuse missing. And if I touch one side, see, it beeps, but it says OL. That happens quite a bit. But if I go to the other side of this empty slot, there, 0.3 ohms, that is our wire. That right freaking there is our freaking wire. Like, are you kidding me? Missing that fuse. Now I need to make sure that we got voltage coming on this side. of this wire. Hopefully it doesn't blow, but so we gotta see if there's voltage coming in on this one side. Let me switch the leads and get that test set up next. All right, we're in here. I'm going to the OBD connector, make sure I got a good ground. So I'm touching pin 16 on OBD connector. We got 12 volts, and so the other side of this meter is going to the ground. Let's see, it should be this one. Oh my goodness, we have fucking 12 volts. Oh, are you kidding me? Well, let's go get a circuit breaker and put I think it's a 20 amp breaker or something. All right, we got the 20 amp circuit breaker. Let's plug this in and see if it pops it. This is unbelievable. Okay, so that's in. It did not pop it. Let's go into the hood and see if we got 12 volts at the alternator connector. Actually, we ain't even gotta go into the hood. Let's just work while we're under here, because we still have that long wire probed up under there, and so this is going to ground. That's jumped, and so now if I plug this in the meter, that should give us. We have 12 volts out there. So this one's going out under the hood in that pin. We got 12 volts out there. I'll be dipped. Well, let's go plug that connector in and see if we get 12 or higher than charging voltage when we fire it up. Okay, I have reattached under the hood. It was not very easy. This is clipped on at the back of the alternator. So let's key on, get a natural little drop, and hopefully this thing will fire. Oh man! I can't believe that works. A missing fuse. Are you kidding? This is why we charge by the hour. It's even dark outside, because I had to walk away a couple times, so I was getting a little frustrated. We made a bigger mess. A missing fuse. I'm a little speechless. I probably got a bunch of stuff to button back up, but now that it's charging, we'll just wait. Today's Saturday night. We're just gonna wait till like Monday, and then we'll button some of this very nasty wiring back up. We'll run for a test drive and see what she does. But I can't believe that. I don't know if anything else is wrong with it, but we'll find out on Monday. It is a nice shiny Monday. We got most of them wires tucked back up under there. We got the hood closed. We got her trying to connect to the scanner. At first, we were just going to see if we can't fire her up and maintain our battery voltage, as it were. Let's turn the key on. Oh, also, I noticed this. Where is it? Here is our wait light. And so now when I key on, I believe that wait light comes on. That was one of their concerns, the glow plug light didn't come on. So we will key on. Boom. We gotta wait. Check engine light turned on and then turn back off. See if we can get it to do it again. Key off, key on. Oh, yeah, it was too fast. So key off. We'll let it sit for a hot second. And then key on. No check engine light, but whatever. Anyway, let's go to scan tool. Let's try that again. Apparently my lens is dirty. Why didn't you tell me my lens was dirty? And then we will EOBD. We'll read codes, see if we can clear codes. And probably just drive her around the parking lot for a bit, get used to her, make sure she runs okay. DTCs. And then we're just going to pick other, because even the GM one didn't seem to give us the right thing. So 2 currents with the race codes, yes. Read codes failed, well that's cool. Let's try and read codes again. Breed code's failed. Okay, well, that's entertaining. At a minimum, we're going to watch our voltage here in the corner and see when we fire it up. Hopefully it goes to charging still. Ooh, trying. She stalled. We'll key her off. We'll wait for the glow light to come on again. There's our weight. It went out. Oh, wait. Still says weight. Let's go back here. Crank. Come on, girl. There she's running. And 13 volts. Oh, yeah. Got some clouds. Anyway, I'm going to pay attention to some data, drive around the parking lot, see what she does. I'll bring you back in a bit. Well, let's see if we can't get some conclusions on the old H1. She runs and drives real well. She's charging, glow plug stuff works. I think the drivability issue that he was complaining about has also been fixed. Spoke to the customer a little bit ago, and he said when he was having drivability issue before, he was unable to hear any turbo spooling going on, and I definitely can hear turbo spooling going on now. So I'm making an assumption that the solenoid that controls the boost, whatever valve, pneumatic, there's like a pneumatic valve that's controlled for boost control. I think that may have also been controlled probably by the same fuse as my guess, because it seems to run and drive pretty well given the vehicle. I did scan it. I think you saw that. I scanned it with both the Autel and the Innova, cheapy dealy. There are no new codes that are popping up even after test driving. So I think when the Autel said there was some sort of error not reading the codes, I think that is just the result that it gets when there are no codes using the OBD2 version for whatever manufacturer we had filtered on the generic OBD2 thing. Last little pro tip for you. Man, if you ain't used one of these, buddy, you don't know what you're missing. Something like this. So this is a Phil's probe. The old knockoff versions, I say knockoff, but there's I say cheaper versions of this. They make different ones. This is one, but this one has usually a large piercer, in the middle there. You can see a little needle deal. I don't like these as they put big holes in wires and whatnot. And since when we got up under the dash, when I stopped filming a little bit, there's several pink wires under there that we needed to follow, and I couldn't actually get access to them. And so this is the only way I was able to get access and then do a continuity check from that test point, because there's no inline connectors either other than the one that goes through the firewall. So I would just snake this little dude in there and get a little pierce on it, and then do a continuity resistance measurement between wherever I had this sitting and then the long lead going to the voltage field wire or whatever to the alternator. And so if you ain't seen one of these are a Phil's probe, not a sponsor, but I wish he was. These, I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well. The needles inside that little piercer there are super tiny, like super tiny, and it just barely goes through the insulation. And it's got this nice little hook on the end. It's got a hooky part, and then it's got like a flat blade spot, so you can actually go in, twist and separate wires, and then hook it. And then when you do that, you can connect your banana jack there, clamp on there. And anyway, this is the tool that I used when I was going through, and there are a few pink wires like buried up behind that nest of stuff. I would use this one to fish through there and hook one of the pink wires, connect it, and then just run my normal, so this is my DVOM lead, so the banana jack, you can just run that right into that dude on the end, like so, and then that's how I'd be able to do that measurement. Anyway, she needs a couple little other small things. We're going to redo the battery cables on her. I'm not going to film that, but I got some little adapter spacer dealies so we can get all his cables and stuff situated and have good connection with the battery. Carrier bearings, some other little miscellaneous wiring things. But anyway, we got the main issue fixed. I hope my tracing was helpful for somebody out there. I don't really know if it was. Yeah, That's really all I got for you. I will catch y'all up in the next video.